All right, so we're going to start here on my seedling table. Things are a real mess right now. I threw some flowers that were dead and dying into this big pot, hoping that they will survive. I've emptied a lot of stuff out of pots. I've got some replacement tomatoes from the spring. These are the ones that I started in February. They look terrible, but if I need some in the garden, I have some to stick in. These are some flowers that I started from seed in the spring. Some Rudbeckia, some straw flower, some really pretty Gomphrena, and the Paradiso mix Echinacea. So these will all be blooming in the fall months. My memorial garden is overrun with weeds right now. There's not a lot to see. My tire, this stuff right here, you'll see this pretty much everywhere in the flower gardens and in the yards. This is blue mist flower, or ageratum, I think it's called. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous in the fall. It is covered with a bluish purple fuzzy flower. So I kind of let it go. As you can see, it looks like a jungle right now, but whenever the fall gets here and it starts blooming, it's going to be amazing. Now there is a bunch of weeds in here too. I also have some pots of stuff that I've dug out of the garden bed around the house that look terrible. I've got some little volunteer pumpkins from our fall display last year, so that's fun. We've just covered this area with mulch, and I've got these two giant pots that I'm going to put some sweet potatoes in. This is a purple sweet potato. I don't think that we have enough time to really get a harvest out of the sweet potatoes, but what I'm hoping for is some seed stock for next year. So some small potatoes that I can put on in my greenhouse to make seed for next year. Now this was my first row of tomatoes. This was beefsteaks. This was a new part of the garden, and the tomatoes didn't do real well here. They put on a good first showing, but then after that they pretty much looked terrible. I pulled out two. There was one there and one there, and I've replaced that with a zucchini. There's a sunflower right there that I started so we could get some fall sunflower blooms. I've got to get the rest of this weeded. I'm hoping for some rain to soften this dirt up so I can weed. And then I just trimmed. You'll see this with a lot of my tomatoes. You know, the humidity here makes the tomatoes just really suffer. So what I have done is trimmed all of the bad looking leaves off of it, staked it up, and I think I topped it. Yeah, I topped this one. Just to kind of give it a rest. I might give it a boost of nitrogen with some fish emulsion, I'm not sure. And as things cool down, hopefully it'll start putting on fruit again. Right now it's just blooming and nothing's happening. So that's my first row of tomatoes. This was the second row of tomatoes. These were Paul Robeson's. These were also in the new bed. As you can see, I've put down mulch in between the rows of tomatoes. These tomatoes did not do well at all. It's not the fault of the Paul Robeson's. This is just, like I said, a new vegetable bed. This was hard packed clay. I added some manure, but obviously it wasn't enough for tomatoes. So I added some more manure. I have one of my backup tomatoes I put in here. See, it looks great. After I planted it, gave it some fish emulsion, it's looking real good. I put in a couple of pickling cucumbers down here between the marigolds. And I also have a squash or zucchini down there. I've got some runner beans growing up just to be pretty. Okay, so this is pretty much how the garden goes through this section. There's a aisle with 3 tomato plants and then another aisle with 3 tomato plants. And I've got my cattle panel green bean trellis on the end. So these 3 tomato plants are Big Rainbow. These were my biggest producers this year. I've got them all trimmed up, got all the rough looking leaves off of them. These do still have some fruits on them that are getting ready to ripen, but they are not setting new fruits We've got some blooms here. Maybe since it's so cool today, maybe we'll get some fruit, new fruit coming on. I've topped some of these and we'll see how they continue to do. This is the first, actually down here is a watermelon. It's got some teeny tiny watermelons on it. We started these melons late. We'll see how that goes. There's a car coming. This is the first of my rattlesnake green beans. These things have been amazing. I highly recommend. You'll see there's some Japanese beetle damage at the top. Just a reminder, we don't use any type of chemicals. We don't use any powders, any oils, any soaps, nothing. Even if it's certified organic. I come out here, which I need to do this evening, because you can see the Japanese beetles up there. We haven't really had a bad problem with them the last week. I've only seen a few here and there, but it looks like they're starting to come back in again. But I just go through the garden and pick off the beetles and drown them. This is sort of my greenhouse overflow area, and it's a disaster. Let's see, I've got some winter squash, some melons, just different things that I started from seed a few weeks ago, some cucumbers. This is all stuff that's gonna go in the garden as I'm taking tomato plants out. I've got a couple of big sunflowers here. These are for the pots in front of my greenhouse that are overgrown with marigolds right now. Just a few of these watermelons are fast producers. You know, that they should produce at least a few watermelons in that 90-day period that we have until frost. Okay, so let's get back. Let me show you what's going on in the greenhouse. These are some strawberries that I got from the grocery store. They look a little dry. I've got seeds starting. As you see, I've got some okra popping up for a customer. These are soaking so that I can go ahead and start up potting these tomatoes. I've got some tomatoes started in there. I'm not sure if they're gonna have enough time to produce in the next 90 days, but I'm gonna put them in pots, so if I have to, I can bring them in the greenhouse. There is also Brussels sprouts and chard starting in there. I think any warm weather tolerant greens, you need to go ahead and get started right now. Chard, there's a lot of bok choy that's warm weather tolerant. Just go ahead and start getting stuff like that started. And even, you know, some broccoli and stuff like that. If you can start it in the house or you have a shady spot out in the garden. This is okra for some customers. And I'm going to stick out in that where the big pots are. I'm going to stick a couple lines of different okra in there. They start producing in 60 days, I believe, so we should have a good month. Between here and there is a mess. It's been so hot in here that I just can't get in here to do any cleaning. But I have sweet potatoes planted in a big raised bed and 2 big pots in the corner. I saw on Living Traditions Homestead that they planted their sweet potatoes in the greenhouse this year because I didn't have any room for them anywhere else. And I thought, hey, I have room in my greenhouse, I can do that. So I went ahead and did that. We'll see how that goes. This is my sweet potato slip generating station. I just can't shut it off. They're so pretty. And a friend just told me that you can eat these leaves, and especially these purple ones are actually quite yummy. So this might just be a green making station for myself. But I am gonna fill those 2 big containers with sweet potatoes. I've got some sunflowers to plant out. I also have suckers, cuttings, and tops that I took of my tomatoes. I'm gonna root them in this jar. They've only been in here a couple of days. I don't see any roots yet. But this way I've got some replacement tomatoes to go ahead and put in the ground, and these will be, you know, farther ahead than these guys down here. These guys I'm gonna put in pots so I can move them into the greenhouse, but these I'll probably go ahead and plant in the ground. All right, so back out in the garden. more green beans on the food wall. This wall goes all the way down to the arch trellis down there. This divides me from the road out there. Here, I'll show you what it looks like from the front. It's like a privacy fence with food. And it was much cheaper to build than a wood privacy fence would have, because that's actually something that we have been wanting to do. But as you can see, food is a much better option. So we have 3 16-foot cattle panels, and we have rattlesnake green beans, cherry tomatoes here in the center, and then more rattlesnake green beans, and then at the very end is cucumbers. We'll get there. And then I have an arch trellis down there. Okay, so I have these side-to-side rows here, 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 and here. Then as we go around the greenhouse, I have a really long row. These were Dr. Witchy's yellow tomatoes. These are the best tasting tomatoes I have ever had. These tomato plants are looking kind of bad, but like I said, they all are. And so I've done the same thing with these, topped them, trimmed them out, and I'll fertilize. Hopefully they'll make it through August and maybe start setting fruit again in September. More green beans. Okay, so we have technically 4 rows of food beside the greenhouse. We have the grow bags against the greenhouse. I have eggplants. These are the Ethiopian type eggplants. Then I have all kinds of mixed eggplants because my labels wore off. Planted down there. I've also got some peppers in the middle and a ground cherry. Then I had tomatoes with the Florida weave. But most of these tomatoes I've taken out. I've got a couple of Cherokee Purple right here in the front that seem to be okay that I'm going to leave. And then I replanted a tomato there. Those were my replacement tomatoes. And then I've replanted some pickling cucumbers where those tomatoes were, and they can go up the Florida weave. And then I have another big rainbow there on the end. Okay, a few weeks ago, I planted pumpkins. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pumpkins on this aisle. This was a 1, 2. That was a Cinderella pumpkin, but the vine borers got it, so I've replaced it with a watermelon, and we'll see how that goes. These are all cherry tomatoes. They're planted right underneath the trellis, and they're all doing really good. I'm fixing to replace this one because it's not performing. I believe that this is the, shoot, I can't remember what it's called. There's my ground cherry and some more jigsaw peppers. Those things are so pretty. I just stuck them in there because I think the plants are so pretty. A little watermelon down there. The cucumbers. More eggplants. See, I've got black beauties, and I also have a Syrian stuffing, but I think that these 2 in the front are black beauties. The Syrian stuffing, I think, is supposed to be a longer black eggplant. This tomato right here is called Everglades tomato, and it is cray-cray. I mean, tiny, it's loaded with tiny little, teeny tiny red tomatoes, and it is just massive. I mean, I have trimmed off some limbs, and then I just spend a lot of time poking limbs through. It's just crazy. I'm definitely going to grow that one again. They are so sweet and yummy. It's even coming over into the green beans. So we have more green beans. I've been really happy with these rattlesnake green beans. Last week, I picked 2 huge stock pots, Tuesday and then again on Sunday, of green beans. It was just crazy. These were my, and I'm talking 24-quart stock pot, like fish fry, or like, you know, Low Country bull size. These were my Black Beauty tomatoes. They did really, really good to begin with, but then they started getting, like, it looked like their leaves were burning. I don't know if they were just not getting enough water. Like I said, it was really dry. Or if it's some type of bacteria or fungus or whatever, I don't know. But we have 1 left. I'm either going to put more beans on this trellis, or more cucumbers, since I already have a trellis here for things to climb on. I haven't decided yet. And here is the end of the greenhouse. This is where my potting shed is at. And around this side of the greenhouse is the pepper aisle. These are all grow bags. In the back is 10-gallon grow bags. And in the front is 3-gallon grow bags. Now, these peppers, despite our weird weather, are doing amazing. And I think it's because I planted them up against the greenhouse. I think they're getting a lot of heat radiating off that greenhouse, and they are just really doing well. Now, I have started having a problem with my bell peppers, these yellow orange bell peppers, rotting before they, I'll show you this one I picked off today, before they turn orange. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if it's a watering issue, since, you know, we're drying out real bad and it's getting hot, and then we get tons of rain, or if it's a calcium issue. But everything is planted in the same soil, and everything else seems to be doing really good. These are the Pippin's Golden Honey peppers. See, there's some that are turning orange. They turn purple and then they turn orange. I had planted some dwarf tomatoes in these 3-gallon pots. Some of the dwarf tomatoes did really good and some of them didn't. So I pulled out some and put in some melon starts and just random things that I had to put in them. These are, again, the jigsaw peppers, and then these are some lunchbox peppers that I had overwintered. They were the first pepper to give me some fruit. These are gorgeous. The Buena Mulata hot peppers. These things are very prolific. There's 2 tomato plants in every one of these pots. Because I read that they like to hold hands. So these guys are definitely holding hands. These purple peppers, I had the good idea to make pepper vinegar with them, but they lose their color. So it just looks like I have human fingers in a jar. So that's yucky. So this is the purple beauty. It's more black though. I want to try to find a more lavender purple colored bell pepper for next year. I've got some habaneros coming on. I've got the Bikino Hot in there, the little bitty. I'm going to definitely make some pepper vinegar with them because I think they will hold their color since they're not purple. I've got some golden bells. These are going to turn yellow, and shishitos down there on the end. So overall, I'm really happy with my pepper experiment this year. I should have done a few with just one plant in it so I could have had a control, but I did not. So this is just going to be the experiment this year for 2 plants per pot. These are 10-gallon pots. Two plants in every one of these different types in a 10-gallon grow bag. Okay, this is my son's. This is where we started. This is my son's pool garden. We did TP purple green beans all the way around the side. They were awesome. We picked several times off of those. Those are the best tasting green beans, even though they're purple. Definitely growing a lot more of those. I re-sowed them in there. You can see there's some little ones coming up. I had just cut the vines out because they were, or the bushes out because they were looking bad and they're not going to produce anymore. These sunflowers, I believe they're the evening sun sunflowers. I just cut a whole bouquet of sunflowers this morning from the top up there, plus sent 4 to my aunt. I'm definitely always growing those. Always, always, always. As a matter of fact, I started a bunch more to put out so we could have sunflowers in the fall. And they are covered in bees, let me tell you. This is a really pretty Cosmo. There is 2 green tomatoes in there, green zebra. There's a praying mantis, if we can find her. She's been living in that little teepee. There's a Beet Alpha cucumber growing up that teepee. It's only given me a few cucumbers. I don't know if it's because it didn't have a whole lot of light down there to begin with or what. There's also a cucamelon in there that we have not harvested off of yet. A lot of this stuff I planted really late. I had put so much effort in the tomatoes and to selling seedlings this year that my garden kind of got in late. I also have a purple vining bean that was just mixed in with those seeds for the bush one. So I'm leaving that one. Okay, so we're back at the end of the greenhouse. We live on less than an acre. The only part of our yard that gets sun is the front yard. The part of the yard between our front porch and the road. So this is where our garden's at. It's kind of crazy, but that's the way that it is. You do what you can where you're at. So this is the continuation of the tomato beds. This is where the salad tomatoes start. These are pink blush salad tomatoes. I've really been happy with these. I need to trim these. I haven't gotten to these plants. You can see they look terrible. This is how the other plants looked. They just looked terrible. But these are still putting on fruit. I mean, that's a brand new little baby fruit right there. So I believe, ooh, look, I don't know if it'll focus, but there's a garden spider. I am just overran, ooh, there she is, with garden spiders this year. I have a giant one in my greenhouse. I forgot to show you. Oh, and I have a pumpkin down there. What I'm doing with these pumpkins, in case you're wondering, you're probably like, Meg, there is not enough room in there for pumpkins. But what I'm actually going to do, and this is how they grew last year on their own, is I'm going to run them out the bottom of that cattle panel and actually let them sprawl in the ditch in front of our house. Last year, they all volunteered, and that's how they all grew out of the garden, because I didn't have the heart to dig them up, even though I was trying to grow food. So this is a tomato I've already pulled up, and I've replaced it with a zucchini or a squash. Our zucchini and squash just did not do good this year. I got like 4 squash off of a lemon squash, and that was it. These are orange icicle again. The plants themselves look terrible, but these are still, they're not producing new fruits, but I'm going to trim them up, and hopefully they will. But these orange icicles are some tasty tomatoes, and they don't have a lot of juice. They don't really have any juice. They're really good for dicing up and putting over eggs and stuff like that. More green beans. Some of these marigolds just went a little insane. I mean, they're huge. I think I stuck a sunflower down here somewhere. Oh, yep, there's a little sunflower right there. Actually, that's gonna be a big one. That's a mammoth sunflower. So it should grow up higher than that T-post. There's a cherry back there. It wasn't supposed to be a cherry, but some of my labels got mixed up because the rain wore them off. This is the Brad's Atomic Grape. It is still going. That thing has been prolific. And it is also putting on new fruit. The cherry tomatoes and several of the salad tomatoes are putting on new fruit. So I just pulled a tomato from there, and I'm going to put something, a squash or zucchini or a melon or something. All right, so that's the end of the tomatoes. This is a big gap between the tomatoes and the arch trellis, and I've got some Alabama red okra planted a few weeks ago in here. I had planted some honeydew back there in the back to go underneath the trellis, but I don't know if it's just too shaded because of all this or what, but they just haven't done well. This is Suya Long cucumbers, which I picked this morning, and I brought like a 5-gallon bucket in the house. And these are Boston pickling. This is the first year that I've really grew a pickling cucumber on purpose, and these Boston picklings are my favorite. They grow a really nice shaped cucumber. On this side of the arch trellis, we have a runner from the cucumbers, a Sakata Sweet melon, a orange small melon, a Kajari melon, and a zucchini rapicante down here at the bottom. I had planted one on the other side, but it rotted, or a vine borer got it. I've got some red noodle beans planted in the back of these planters on both sides. So they have just started climbing. And then I've got more of those purple TP beans planted in the front, and they will fall over the front of the planter. And then I have a sunflower in the center of each. So that'll be a fall thing. On this side are cucumbers that I planted probably near the end of the spring. Suyo Long and the Bia Alpha down there. Those Bia Alphas have been really productive. And again, these Suyo Longs are just crazy productive. They were the first thing to go over the top of the trellis. But now, I think if this Kajari melon had been planted at the same time, it probably would have beat it, because it is growing like crazy. I had a big volunteer sunflower down there that volunteered right in front of my trellis, so I left it, but it's drying its seeds out now. There's a bunch of bugs on it, but you can see it's got sunflower seeds in there, so I'm probably gonna feed those to chickens. Here's my giant corn. This is popcorn. I had bought it with a 4-foot plant of sweet corn, and I did the sweet corn on the other side and the popcorn here, thinking they were both going to be the same height. As you can see, I've picked the short sweet corn, and this popcorn just got massive. So this whole area, this is my dead squash plant. I thought it was going to come back, but the dang squash bugs have just been relentless. But it keeps throwing up new shoots. But I don't know, I think it's a goner for good now. But anyway, I had planted the short sweet corn here, and it did really well. It had tiny little baby corns. When I picked those, I planted sweet potatoes, because that's a really thick, deep bed right there. So I'm hoping those do good. I planted those a while ago. Since this is sort of like a microclimate in my garden because of this giant corn, I think, and we have to wait for this to dry out because it's popcorn, I think I'm gonna put some Brussels sprouts and chard in the ground here, because they're completely blocked from the evening sun. And we'll see how that goes. I have kind of a tunnel on this side going. So that is it for this stretch of garden. And we also have an apple tree right there at the end. Now my winter garden, or where I do a lot of gardening in the winter, just doesn't get enough sunshine for summer crops. But now we trimmed a good bit off of this tree, and I actually grew some tomatoes, some Crimson Sprinter tomatoes, 2 plants per 20-gallon pot, and they actually did really good. I didn't do a very good job keeping up with these. They just kind of sprawled. This is the last one. They're determinate tomatoes. So as soon as this tomato blushes, I'm going to take it out, and then I'm planting carrots in these bags. We'll see how that goes. I have no idea. I've got some chard planted in this feed bag over here. Originally we had did feed bag potatoes, and they did pretty good. Not as prolific as I had hoped. But I'm gonna try to get some more. Hello, Mr. Man. Try to get some more chard and stuff planted. Now, I pinched a nerve in my back. I've got to get in here with a weed eater, and I just haven't. But I've got 2 20-gallon grow bags right there that had sprouting broccoli in them. I'm going to take that out, and I'm not sure what I'm going to put in there yet. If I'm going to do summer or fall stuff. My Brussels sprouts, I think because we had such a mild spring, summer compared to what we normally would, I have Brussels sprouts, which is crazy, and I have no idea like when to plant them, but pick them, but I'm thinking probably now. I just don't know, but they're starting to have a lot of bug damage, so that's why I'm thinking probably now. Say hello. I've got a couple melons planted in this 10-gallon bag. And then this is a loofah gourd. It's growing like crazy in a feed bag. This is a ground cherry. You can tell it's kind of leggy, a lot more leggy than that other one, and it's because I don't think we get as much sun over here. But I mean, it's got a ton of fruit on it, and it's huge. Also in a feed bag. This is a empty one. I've got a weed. I've got some zucchini in these two tomatillos. They're real leggy back there. We'll see if they fruit. And celery. Now, this is the first time I've planted celery. This was also planted in the spring, early spring. And another thing, I don't know when to pick. I was thinking I'd just come out here and pick one and see how it tastes. I cleared this bed out, and I've got some kale. This is not the soil in this bed is just not good. I need to throw some manure on it. And this was my lettuce bed. I think I'm going to turn this into a ginger bed because I've got some ginger in pots that needs to be planted. So this is crazy overgrown right now. As soon as my back is feeling better, I'm going to try to get this tackled. I'd really love to see rows in here of grow bags and feed bags. It's more shady back here, so maybe carrots and kale and chard and stuff, and then maybe try to do another run of tomatoes here. See how that goes. I don't know. Those 20-gallon ones are probably pretty heavy, so we may just have to do carrots in the front. All right, so I think that's about it. I was going to show you all the chickens and everything, but I'll do that in a separate video. Oh, this is my strawberries in a strawberry pot. I didn't expect them to do well, but they actually did. The Japanese beetles have been eating on them, but they've done okay. So, and they've got some runners. So I'll have some baby strawberry plants. Say hello, duckies. So I think we have all boy ducks, so that's great. All right, so that's the garden tour. A ton has changed since the spring, and I'm sorry that I haven't been better. There's just been so much work and so much going on. It's just hard to stop, and I'm not a morning person, so there's never a good time in the middle of the day when the sun's shining to come out here and look at everything. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope you got some ideas of some things that you could be doing right now to further your garden season. In the greenhouse, like I said, I'm going to be planting chard and Brussels sprouts and any type of green that is heat tolerant. I've got some little seed tomatoes I'm going to try out. We'll just see. It's just experiment. You know, you won't have it at all if you don't give it a shot. Oh, here's my big girl. We'll finish out the video with her. She's massive, and she's picked a spot right in the corner of the greenhouse above the sweet potatoes, and she is getting fat.